The topic of tonight's satsang is being yourself. And this was suggested to me today when I was looking through a bunch of Ma quotes, Nandamaya Ma quotes, and I read something that at first might seem a bit surprising to you, those of you especially who know Ma's teachings quite well. She said, if you stay in your own house with your own people, there is joy. Staying in a foreign place causes unhappiness. That is why you should look for your own house and your own people. How much longer do you wish to stay in a foreign place and remain unhappy? So we know that Ma said of herself, every place is my place. Every person is my person. There are no foreign places to Ma. However, we are not avatars. Last time I checked. We are not totally realized people. And so we have places that seem more right and familiar to us and less foreign to us than other places. And when we are in our own place and not in a foreign place, then we can relax and listen more carefully and hear more carefully the promptings of our own wisdom heart. So what do I mean by a foreign place? And this is also what I think Ma meant when she said a foreign place. The kinds of life issues that people come to me with most often, and this has been consistent over years, is I don't like my job. I don't like the relationship that I'm in. I don't like the way that I'm conducting my life. I don't feel comfortable with some aspect of my life, but I'm afraid to change it. This is most often what people come to me with when they're coming with some kind of a life problem. And they're afraid to change it because they're afraid of losing money, afraid of someone being angry with them, afraid of just something different, afraid of the unknown, afraid of things just being difficult, afraid of disappointing someone, all these different kinds of fears. So the right place, or the place that is not foreign, is the place where you have that sense of rightness, where you have that ineffable, almost at times, inexplicable on an intellectual level feeling that you're in the right job, that you're in the right relationship for that time, that you're living in the right place, that you're conducting your day in the right way, that you're making choices that have that feeling of going in the right direction, in the direction of goodness. It's not just a feeling of rightness, it's a feeling of goodness, of things being in their right place. Ever since I was very little, I had a strong sense of this. And a strong sense of when I was going in the right direction and when I was not. And when things were organized in a wrong way, or when things were organized in the way that was somehow leading me to where I was going. I didn't know where I was going, but I always had this very strong sense of when I was on the right path somehow. Long before I had any notion of being a spiritual person. And when I was not on the right track, when I was not spending my time with the right people, when I was spending my time with foreign people in a foreign place, people that were foreign to whatever is uniquely being expressed through me, whatever I'm blossoming into to be expressive of, foreign to that, foreign to my highest aspirations, foreign to my real capacity in life. Though I would literally feel physically ill. I would get a feeling of heaviness and oppression and nausea. And to this day that happens. I don't go on the wrong path as much as I used to. I don't have the same kind of anxieties that I used to have about not being nice to people. Oh, I have to spend time with this person because it wouldn't be nice if I didn't, that kind of a thing. But to this day, if I do choose something, an activity, a way to spend my time, these are the kinds of things that might come up these days, in a way that is not really conducive to my waking up, then I have still that feeling of it's kind of sickening in a way. So it's been, even though I've made, a gazillion mistakes and wasted untold hours of my life doing stuff that was not conducive to my waking up, I think in the most part I've been saved from having my entire life be dragged away from me by these things, by these foreign places and foreign people and foreign activities. I think this is what Mom means when she says, don't spend your time in foreign places. That causes suffering. Each of you has access to that same inner voice that I hear, or outer voice, or both at the same time. Each of us has that moment, even if it's fleeting, when we're trying to decide what should we do with our time, say, or who should we be spending time with, or what place should we live, or what job should we have. We each have access to that wisdom, no matter how fleeting, that's telling us what it is that we really should be doing and really should not be doing. And that fleeting moment, or maybe it's not so fleeting, is our wisdom heart talking to us. Now, I know from many years of experience and being in, I have just as many karmas as anybody else, and being in situations where I had to make a decision that was radically in the other direction as my karma. And it's very, very hard. It's like your karmas are yelling at you, trying, no, come back, be with me. But those kind of karmas are like forms of possession, right? They are also foreign in a certain sense. That's your habitual conditioning. And we have to have a really subtle sense of listening, being able to catch that moment or moments when we're being told what it is we should really be doing. And then we have to have tremendous determination and courage to actually listen and follow that voice. Because a lot of times that voice is telling us, the voice of our wisdom heart is telling us to do things either that we don't want to do because they're hard, or that we're afraid to do because they're going to upset somebody's apple cart, either ours or somebody else's. And so we have that moment of wisdom, and all of you have that moment of wisdom whenever these kinds of things come up. And I think you all know what I mean by that feeling of goodness. It's not really right or wrong, it's just that feeling of wholesomeness, right? Of which way should I go? Which is the most wholesome, freeing, spacious, direct way that I can go? And it's often difficult to go that way because it's inevitably a way that is going to help us to resolve some karma. And so we meet with resistance. We meet when that momentum of karma going in one way meets this sensation of going in this spacious way. Then there is a feeling of resistance or fear, and we have to apply some effort. However, the more time we spend in our precious human lifetime trying to use our minds to rationalize why we are listening to our fears. That is exactly the measure of how much you will be suffering. You will never stop suffering by listening to the rationalizations of your karmic patterning. It simply won't happen. You will not get refuge that way. You will not be fulfilled that way. You will not wake up that way. And no one will like you any the better for it. The only thing that you're doing when you have that moment of understanding what is the right way for you, you are unique. You are a unique uprising of individuality, of that experience of Shiva nature. And everybody has a unique way of traveling toward greater awakeness. And, because it's unique, at some points, someone else is always going to have something to say about it, right? So if you spend your lifetime trying to please other people or placate them or make them like you or be nice to you or think you're nice, you're going to have a really unsatisfying, unfulfilling life. And that's just the bottom line. It's absolutely what will happen. So at some point, everybody, and it doesn't even matter if you're on a spiritual path or not, or a conscious one, you actually have to be yourself. That's what Mom means when she says, don't be in a foreign place. She means be yourself. Let yourself be yourself. You don't have to have any justification for it. None. You don't have to explain to anybody why you're doing what you're doing or not doing what you're not doing. You don't owe anybody any apologies for being yourself. So everywhere we go, there's going to be someone telling us that we should feel badly about ourselves just for being ourselves. If you listen to those people, you're going to have a very unhappy life. And sometimes, even when we don't feel badly about ourselves, we pretend we do, because we think that's more socially acceptable. Especially women will often pretend to feel badly about themselves when they don't actually feel badly about themselves. Ma is saying, be yourself. You can't have an authentic life or an authentic spiritual practice if you're not able to sit on and stand on your own ground. If you're not able to just go your own way with your own flavor, your own style, if you're not able to go against the grain of your own conditioning, because we all have absorbed tremendous conditioning from our culture. And so this is not largely an external battle. Being yourself is not largely an external battle. Sure, there'll be a lot of people around who don't like it at different points when you're just being yourself. But there are going to be a lot of points when you don't like it, when it's inconvenient for you. And those are the hardest things, when it's nobody else's fault. But just remind yourself that you cannot be happy, you cannot be fulfilled unless you find the courage to be yourself, whatever that looks like. Whatever that looks like. Now, the other aspect about being not in a foreign place, being in your own place, is when we're trying to wake up, when we're doing spiritual practice. It's very supportive and helpful to be around other people who are doing the same thing. Just to be in the same house where other people are practicing or having a similar rhythm to their day that you are. Just to be able to talk to other people in the language of whatever tradition that you're in, right? Have a kind of a common way of talking, to be able to share things that happen. And most importantly, to be able to reveal yourself more, to be able to experiment with other people in your tradition with being yourself more. Because if you can't be yourself around your spiritual community, you should get a new community. Or at least if you can't be yourself a little bit more than you normally are. I mean, the fact that we can't just be ourselves, just express and choose what we want and let go of what we don't want, that very simple thing, choosing what we want and letting go of what we don't want. This is very, very difficult. But the community is a place where you can practice those things, where you can be around other people who are experimenting with the same kinds of things that you are. So the spiritual community ideally should be a place where you can relax a little bit more, be yourself a little bit more, or a lot more, and have that spill over into other areas of your life too, once you kind of feel it out and realize that it's actually okay. Like anything else, it takes getting accustomed to simply being yourself, simply choosing what feels right to you without any excuses or explanations or apologies or sheepishness. We can feel compassionate toward people who get upset when other people around them start to express themselves more freely. Some people in your life will get upset by that, and we can feel for them. But that doesn't mean you should hold up your life for them. We don't have to reject anybody just because they're not approving of us. But neither do we have to try to mold ourselves to what they want in order to make them feel more comfortable. They're dealing with their own karma. It isn't really that helpful to anybody to try to make them feel more comfortable by twisting yourself up into some unfamiliar shape. That's called enabling, right? You're enabling your own karmas and you're enabling theirs too. And everyone's going along pretending like it's okay. And it's not really okay if you want to wake up. It just delays things and digs a deeper karmic pattern. So I just want to read again what Ma said to remind you of her exact words. If you stay in your own house, that means in your own place, your home, with your own people, there is joy. There is great joy and great freedom in simply being who you are, whatever that might look like. I feel, aside from whatever has happened with respect to the sadhana that I've done, just the fact that I can express myself so freely at this point in my life is a great source of enjoyment. It's like letting down a tremendous burden. When I was younger, I didn't feel this way at all. I felt I was tremendously oppressed in my expressiveness. I was not supported in expressing myself fully when I was growing up in lots of different areas. And I took on a habit of suppressing my own self-expression in order not to upset or confuse other people. So I internalized that in a very deep way until I couldn't express myself except through writing. And it took me many, many years. This was a very conscious issue for me. I was not unaware of it at all. In fact, I think, it was one of the main problems that I was working with. And now I just feel completely unrestrained. Can you imagine?
No.
Yeah, it is kind of miraculous. And still people don't like it. Some people love it, but other people don't. And sometimes I get quite vigorous negative responses because I say things that other people don't say. But, what can I do? I feel great. It's like, breathing clean air all the time. Being able to breathe. Right. Staying in a foreign place causes unhappiness. That is why you should look for your own house and for your own people. How much longer do you wish to stay in a foreign place and remain unhappy? There were certain signal points in my life when the barriers of self-expression let down. And, I remember those things quite vividly. But then the rest of it just happened incrementally over time. Really after feeling tremendously oppressed in my self-expression, tremendously constrained. And it really is like living in a foreign place when you're living to other people's expectations, and especially when you're living to other people's fears. That is incredibly oppressive. You're oppressing yourself when you do that. I quite often found myself in that position of self-censorship to try to assuage other people's fears. So they wouldn't be anxious. Mm-hmm. I don't know if you have that experience, but some of you are nodding. Yeah. It just isn't a life well lived when you do that. And it's not the basis for the fastest way to wake up, that's for sure. So I'm going to stop there and put on the sound from our Jayakula West folks. You folks have yourselves muted, so I've unmuted you. And hopefully we can have a good discussion about this.
The more I realize that everything that I think of as myself is insubstantial, all the thoughts that I associate with this self and all the feelings, the more I realize how just changeable and not very solid those are, the more free I feel to just let it all out somehow.
Yeah, when you realize that there's actually nothing here to defend, there's not really very much at stake. It does bring more freedom in your self-expressiveness. And when you really start to have that immersion in presence, and who is being upset with you? You also start to feel so much more compassion, just natural compassion, and understanding of everybody's condition, that you can say a lot more than you used to. Not as many people get upset. Right? Because people can feel that love, they can feel the compassion that's just flowing, and so some things that you say have a different impact. Not always, because some people are very shut down, but in general that's true, I find. If your heart is open, you can say a lot more. Yeah.